If this were your child, wouldn't you want to know what happened?
CETO Assistance, Vicky speaking. How can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the water coming up, sir? Can you give me a description? Ankles? Hello?
What did you say? Hey.
Yes, how far is the water coming up, sir?
It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down.
What did we just hear? What was that?
This is the most up-to-date Nolan Wells piece of information that just doesn't line up. You've heard a lot so far, but this one is really taking the cake for me. By now, everyone has heard the recording of the CETO, which is like a towing company for boats that Nolan Wells' friends made. You heard the dispatch, you heard everything. Here's the one that doesn't make sense. Now we're being told, again, we gotta be able to confirm it 100%. Right now we're at like 90% confirmation of it, that one of the friends, the grandfather called, or the father called, spoke with somebody and said, oh, they no longer need emergency assistance. The reason why that doesn't really add up or make sense to me is because the kid that's on the phone with CETO dispatch sounds like, hey, you guys need to get here. Like, we're taking on water. We're going to sink. You guys need to get here. What transpired from the moment that the person allegedly called and said, hey, we're all set, they're good, they don't need emergency services, to him being frantic on the phone? Did that really happen? If it did, why was none of the friends aware of it, and why wasn't it stated at one point on that recorded line?
Quick pause before we keep going. This is True Crime Site, and this channel covers real cases like this one, tracking what's actually confirmed, not what's just trending. If that's what you're here for, hit subscribe now so you don't miss the next update on this case. Now there's something I want us to analyze carefully. There's a piece of video connected to all of this that's easy to miss, inside everything else going on. It's not dramatic to look at. Just a boat, a group of teenagers trying to get it started, the ordinary chaos of people rushing to leave somewhere. But watch closely and count. 7 people. Same number the caller gave the dispatcher on that CETO call. Nolan isn't one of them. This matters because of exactly when this footage was taken. Not sometime in the middle of the day, not hours before anything went wrong. This is the boat at Horn Island, right as they're leaving, 4:30 in the afternoon. That timing rules out a version of events some people have floated. The idea that something could have happened to Nolan somewhere out on the water, sometime after they'd already left, during the ride back. This video shows the departure itself. Whatever happened to him, it happened before this moment, not during the trip home. There's a detail in this specific piece of footage worth being precise about, because it changes how you should read it. This isn't the boat mid-journey, cruising along calmly. This is the moment they're trying to actually get it running, in a hurry, right as they're pushing off from the island. According to accounts from people who were there, this is also around the time somebody was reportedly yelling at the group to hurry up and get on board. That urgency in the footage lines up with what's already been described elsewhere. A boat that needed to leave fast, for mechanical reasons, not a slow, unhurried departure with plenty of time to notice who was or wasn't accounted for. Police have reportedly gathered other footage and photos backing up something specific too. That Nolan was still on Horn Island after his friends had already gone. Not with them anymore, not on that boat, but still physically present on the island itself, seen by other people who were there that day. Which brings up the actual question worth sitting with. If his friends left at 4:30 and Nolan was still there afterward, who was he actually with? Horn Island wasn't empty that day. It was the 4th of July. Hundreds of people, by most accounts, scattered across that stretch of coastline. Somewhere in that crowd are the people who were actually near Nolan during the hours nobody's fully accounted for yet. That's not a small detail buried in this case. That's arguably the whole case, condensed into one unanswered question. Here's what investigators reportedly do have. A document from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, The same agency that provided the search teams with a description of Nolan when they went out looking for him. That document apparently included details from witnesses, people who'd actually seen him that day, describing what he looked like and what he was doing. That confirms something worth stating plainly. There were people who saw Nolan on Horn Island after his friends left. Real witnesses, not rumors. The search teams had a physical description detailed enough to work from, which means somebody had actually looked at him closely enough that afternoon to describe him. So the people who could answer what happened during that window aren't hypothetical. They exist. They were there. The open question is whether they've actually come forward, and whether investigators have identified all of them yet. This is where the case's central frustration really lives. Not in any single piece of evidence, but in the gap between how many people were reportedly on that island and how few of them have spoken publicly about what they actually saw. Think about the actual scale of what investigators are working with here. Horn Island isn't a small private beach. On a holiday weekend, it draws boats from all along that stretch of coast. Strangers who've never met each other, sharing the same few miles of sand for a single afternoon. Most of those people had no reason to notice one specific 18-year-old in a crowd that size, and no reason to think, days later, that something they saw might actually matter. That's exactly why investigators have kept asking the public for any photos or video from that day, not just from people who knew Nolan, but from anyone who happened to be there at all. Somebody filming their own friends in the background of a video might have caught him without ever realizing it. Somebody's photo of the water might have him standing in the frame, unnoticed, weeks before anyone thought to look. That's the actual, unglamorous work behind a case like this. Not one dramatic new witness stepping forward, but investigators combing through ordinary footage from ordinary strangers, hoping something in the background fills in a piece of the picture. Katie is the one name most people already know from this window, but even her own account, as it's been described, only covers one specific conversation, one narrow slice of time. If Nolan was still on the island, as late as reports have suggested, sometimes as late as 6 o'clock, that's well over an hour after his friends left. An hour is a long time, long enough to talk to multiple people, move around, end up somewhere entirely different than where anyone last placed him. Nobody's published a full accounting of that hour yet. Not the friends, who'd already left. Not Katie, whose account covers a single conversation. Not the whole window. Somewhere in that stretch of time is where this case's real answer is probably sitting, waiting on somebody who was actually there to say something, or waiting in the background of a video nobody's watched closely enough yet. Here's something that doesn't line up with what's already been widely reported. Everyone knows the Katie story by now. Nolan told her he was heading back to the boat. She assumed he would. That's the version that's been repeated across nearly every update on this case, the one Ben Crump has stood at a podium and called a contradiction. But Warren's account of that same moment sounds nothing like that. He describes it as barely a conversation at all, a hi, a bye, something in passing, not a real exchange. Not the kind of moment where someone tells you their plans for the rest of the night. Two people, describing what's supposed to be the exact same interaction, and they don't match at all. Think about what that actually does to everything built on top of that contradiction. For weeks, the entire public argument has rested on the idea that Nolan had a real conversation with Katie, one specific enough that he told her a plan, and that plan either got followed or it didn't. That's the whole engine driving one of this case's biggest questions. If Warren's right, that engine doesn't exist. You can't have a meaningful disagreement about what someone said during a conversation that barely happened. A hi and bye doesn't carry a stated plan. It doesn't carry an intention anyone could later betray or follow through on. It's just two people crossing paths. But if the fuller version holds up, the one where they genuinely talked and he told her something real, then Warren is the one whose account doesn't add up, which raises its own uncomfortable question. Is he downplaying what he actually remembers, or does he genuinely not know as much about that stretch of the afternoon as people have assumed he does. It's worth going back to how Katie's side of this actually described it, because the word choice there matters more than it might seem. Her mother told reporters that Katie had a conversation and assumed Nolan was getting ready to get on the boat he'd come out on. Assumed, not watched him do it, not confirmed it with her own eyes. Her mother used that exact word twice in the same statement, which suggests it wasn't accidental. It reads like a careful, deliberate choice, an acknowledgement that Katie's account was built on a reasonable belief, following a real conversation, not on something she personally witnessed happen afterward. That distinction actually matters for weighing these two competing versions against each other. If Katie's own family is being this careful to say she assumed rather than confirmed, then her account was never really a direct eyewitness contradiction of the friend's story to begin with. It was always one person's honest read on a conversation, sitting next to another person's account of a conversation that may have barely happened at all. Nobody's reconciled these two versions publicly. Not investigators, not Katie's family, not Warren himself in any follow-up. They're just sitting there, unresolved, two completely different descriptions of a moment that's supposed to be one of the most important conversations in this entire case. That's worth remembering the next time you hear this contradiction repeated as a clean, simple disagreement. It might not be simple at all. It might not even be describing the same conversation. Okay, now let's get into the part everyone's actually talking about. TMZ took the original CTO recording and enhanced it, cleaned it up, pulled out the background noise, tried to isolate whatever was happening underneath the caller's voice. And according to their report, some listeners believe they can hear specific things in that background, starting around 12 seconds into the call. A voice asking, "Is he dead?" Someone saying, "Nolan." Someone saying, "Oh my God." Later in the call, something that sounds like, "Check his chest." Something that sounds like, "Wake up." Sit with that combination for a second, because it's a lot. If accurate, that's not vague background chatter. That's a group of people reacting to something happening to a specific person, by name, while one of them is calmly telling a dispatcher that everybody's fine. Think about what those two things happening at the same time would actually mean. In the foreground, composed, giving GPS coordinates, requesting a specific tow location. In the background, if this is real, panic, a name being called out, someone asking whether that person is dead. That's not a small inconsistency. That's two completely different emotional realities running through the same 30 seconds of audio. This isn't even the only enhanced version circulating. A separate audio engineer working independently of TMZ put out her own cleaned-up version of the same call, and it spread just as widely across social media. Different people doing the same kind of work, landing on similar claims, which on the surface sounds like independent confirmation, but it's worth being careful about what that actually proves. Two different people enhancing the same muddy recording, both starting from the same expectation of what they might hear, isn't the same thing as two separate pieces of evidence agreeing with each other. Here's what matters just as much as what's being claimed, though. TMZ themselves were upfront that none of this is confirmed. They said plainly that the recording is muffled enough that different people hear different words in the same few seconds. That's their own caveat, built into their own reporting, not something added after the fact to walk it back once questions started coming in. That caveat is easy to lose once a clip like this starts spreading, though. Once someone hears the words laid out for them in a headline or a video title, it gets harder to listen to the actual audio without those exact phrases jumping out at you, whether they're genuinely there or not. That's not a flaw specific to this case. It's just how human hearing works once expectation gets involved. And that's exactly the problem with a piece of evidence like this. It spreads on the strength of what people believe they're hearing, not on anything that's actually been verified. Two different people can listen to the same 30 seconds and walk away with two entirely different transcripts in their head, both convinced they heard it clearly. So where does that leave this? A real claim, from a real outlet, about something genuinely unsettling if true, and an explicit admission, from that same outlet, that nobody's actually confirmed a single word of it. That gap between claim and confirmation is exactly where this goes next. Not everyone's convinced, and the person pushing back isn't some random voice online. He's a credentialed digital forensics expert. Robert Freed appeared on News Nation to actually analyze this, side by side, the original recording against TMZ's enhanced version, and his conclusion was direct. He could not corroborate any of the phrases people are claiming to hear. Not, maybe it's there, not possibly. He listened, professionally, with the tools to actually isolate audio the way this requires, and came away unable to confirm a single one of those words. Here's the detail that should genuinely concern anyone taking this claim at face value. Freed found that TMZ's enhanced version is 20 seconds longer than the original recording, and it has a different digital fingerprint. Think about what that actually means. If you enhance an existing file, clean up the noise, isolate certain frequencies, the file should still be recognizably the same recording underneath all that processing. A different length, a different fingerprint. That's not what simple enhancement looks like. That's the kind of discrepancy that raises real questions about whether the file being analyzed is actually a clean version of the original at all. This isn't the first time this exact pattern has played out in this case either. Remember the viral video everyone was certain captured Nolan's voice demanding his phone back? That claim spread the same way, repeated everywhere, treated as settled, right up until the person actually in that video came forward and said the voice was his own, not Nolan's. Even Ben Crump, who'd originally shared it, walked that one back. This case has already shown once that confident, widely repeated claims about disputed audio don't always hold up under actual scrutiny. Freed made one more point worth sitting with, maybe the most important one in this entire chapter. He said that once he heard what specific words people claimed were in the recording, his own mind started going there too, automatically, even knowing better. That's not him being careless, that's just how human hearing actually works. Once you're told what to listen for, you start hearing it, whether it's genuinely there or not. That's not a small caveat. That's the entire mechanism behind how a claim like this spreads in the first place. Someone hears something ambiguous, decides what it probably says, tells other people what to listen for, and suddenly thousands of people are all hearing the exact same specific words in something that was never actually clear to begin with. So here's where this leaves things plainly. A viral claim from a real outlet that even that outlet admitted wasn't confirmed, and now a named expert with actual credentials and actual tools saying he can't verify it either, and pointing to a real technical problem with the file itself. That doesn't mean nothing happened on that boat. It means this specific piece of audio isn't the evidence people are treating it as. To be clear, that doesn't mean the audio is fake either. It means one credentialed expert disputes it, and as of right now, nobody's independently confirmed it in either direction. Both possibilities stay open until someone actually does. There's one more piece of this worth knowing about, and it comes from a document ABC News obtained, not from social media speculation. It's a report from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, the same agency coordinating the search for Nolan. This document reportedly includes descriptions from actual witnesses, people who saw him on the island that day, and told searchers what they remembered. That's worth sitting with for a second. This wasn't gathered for public consumption. It was gathered specifically to help searchers identify Nolan, physically, out on the water and the shoreline, while they were still looking for him. Among those details, some witnesses apparently described Nolan as having consumed a significant amount of alcohol that day. Here's what's important to say clearly before going any further. This is a witness account, relayed secondhand through a records request, not a toxicology result. Nobody's confirmed what, if anything, was actually in his system when he entered the water. That's still sitting with the pending autopsy results, both the state's and the independent one. The same results this entire case has been waiting weeks for. It's worth understanding why toxicology specifically takes this long, because it's easy to assume a lab just isn't prioritizing a case like this one. That's not really how it works. Toxicology screening involves testing for a wide range of substances at very small concentrations in a body that's already been affected by time in the water and by decomposition. Labs have to run multiple separate tests, often send samples to specialized facilities for anything unusual, and account for how decomposition itself can interfere with certain results. Officials handling this case have said outright that this specific step could take weeks, regardless of how much public attention the case receives. That's not unique to Nolan's case. It's the same bottleneck nearly every case like this one runs into. So why include the witness accounts at all, if they aren't confirmed? Because it's part of what searchers were actually working from that day, and because it's the kind of detail that could genuinely matter once toxicology results do come back. Remember what the forensic side of this case already explained. Alcohol, or anything else in his system, doesn't just answer a curiosity. It speaks to balance, judgment, reaction time under stress, factors that matter enormously in a case centered entirely on how someone ended up in dangerous water and whether he was able to get himself back out of it. It's also worth being fair about what this detail doesn't do. Being a teenager at a holiday gathering who'd been drinking doesn't explain the boat's strange movements that evening. It doesn't explain the disputed audio, confirmed or not. It doesn't explain who Nolan was actually with during that unaccounted-for hour after his friends left. It's one piece of a much larger picture, sitting alongside everything else in this case, waiting to be confirmed or ruled out by the one thing that actually can settle it: toxicology. Until that comes back, this detail stays exactly what it currently is: a witness account worth knowing, not yet worth treating as an answer. So here's where all of this actually leaves us. A boat that left without him. A window of time nobody's fully accounted for. A version of the Katie story that doesn't match what's been reported everywhere else. An audio claim that's genuinely unsettling if true. And a credentialed expert saying the file itself doesn't hold up the way it's being presented. And witness accounts, unconfirmed, sitting there waiting on toxicology to actually mean something. None of that is an answer. It's a list of open threads, and that's honestly where this case still stands, no matter how many new pieces keep surfacing. We're going to keep pulling on every one of them until something actually resolves. Not before. If you've made it this far, thank you for sitting with the details instead of just the headlines. That's what this case actually deserves. There's more coverage like this waiting on the channel. Subscribe to True Crime Site so you're here for whatever comes next. On this case, and the others we're following. We'll be back the moment there's something real to bring you.